Good evening, and thank you for joining me for another Boring Books for Bedtime. I hope tonight's selection provides all the boredom your busy brain needs to quiet down and let you get some sleep. Before we begin, I'd like to give a special shout out of thanks to some new members of our Patreon family. Carol, Caroline, Lair, Quincy, Lillian, Cindy, and Chris. Thank you all so much for supporting this podcast. By becoming members of Patreon, you help us remain 100% listener-supported and ad-free for everyone, and it's very much appreciated. And because you became members in the month of December, you and everyone else who supports us through Patreon or with a one-time tip via buymeacoffee.com before midnight on December 31st will be entered into our special holiday giveaway. If you're interested in being entered into that raffle, or just finding out more about the perks available to subscribers, including exclusive episodes and collections of episodes by topic, you'll find links to Patreon and buymeacoffee.com in the show description. Good luck, and thank you to everyone who supported us this year. It's really much appreciated. Now, let's read and relax. Find a comfortable spot. Adjust your volume. Take a nice deep breath in. Let it out slowly. And off we go. Tonight, in a bit of an antidote to the holiday season's hustle and bustle, let's take a relaxing trip through nature with Where the Forest Murmurs, Nature Essays by Fiona Macleod, first published in 1906 at the offices of Country Life Limited, Tavistock Street, Covent Garden, WC, London. Let's begin. To Mr. P. Anderson Graham. Dear Mr. Graham, to whom so fittingly as to you could I inscribe this book? It was you who suggested it, you who in Country Life, published at intervals, longer or shorter as the errant spirit of composition moved me, the several papers which make it one book. You without whose encouragement and good counsel this volume would probably not have been written. Then perchance it might have gone to that Brazil press in the country of the young, wherefrom are issued all the delightful books, which, though possible and welcome in Tir na Nog, are unachieved in this more difficult world, except in dreams and hopes. It would be good to have readers among the kindly she. Do not the poets there know an easy time, having only to breathe their thought onto a leaf, and to whisper their music to a reed, and lo, the poem is public, from the caverns of Tir Fotwyn to the hills of Flathanas. But till one gets behind the foam yonder, the desire of the heart is for comrades here. These hours of beauty have meant so much to me, somewhat in the writing, but much more in the long incalculable hours and days out of which the writing has risen, like the blue smoke out of woods, that I want to share them with others, who may care for the things written of as you and I care for them, and among whom may be a few who likewise will be moved to garner from each day of the eternal pageant 1 hour of unforgettable beauty. Fiona Macleod. Where the Forest Murmurs. It is when the trees are leafless, or when the last withered leaves rustle in the wintry air, creeping along the bare boughs like tremulous mice, or fluttering from the branches like the tired and starving swallows left behind in the ebbing tides of migration, that the secret of the forest is most likely to be surprised. Mystery is always there. Silence and whispers, still glooms, sudden radiances, the passage of wind and idle airs. All these inhabit the forest at every season, but it is not in their amplitude that great woodlands reveal their secret life. In the first vernal weeks, the wave of green creates a mist or shimmering veil of delicate beauty, through which the missel thrush calls, and the loud screech of the jay is heard like a savage trumpet cry. The woods then are full of a virginal beauty. There is intoxication in the light air. The cold azure among the beech spaces, or where the tall elms sway in the east wind, is, like the sea, exquisitely desirable, exquisitely unfamiliar, inhuman, of another world. Then follow the days when the violets creep through the mosses at the base of great oaks, when the dust of snow bloom on the blackthorn gives way to the trailing dog rose, when myriads of bees among the chestnut blossoms fill the air with a continuous drowsy unrest, when the cushat calls from the heart of the fir, when beyond the green billowy roof of elm and hornbeam, of oak and beech, of sycamore and lime and tardy ash, the mysterious bells of the south fall through leagues of warm air as the unseen cuckoo sails on the long tides of the wind. Then in truth is there magic in the woods. The forest is alive in its divine youth. Every bough is a vast plume of joy. On every branch a sunray falls, or a thrush sways in song, or the gauzy ephemeridae dance in rising and falling aerial cones. The wind moves with the feet of a fawn, with the wings of a dove, with the passing breath of the white owl at dusk. There is not a spot where is neither fragrance nor beauty nor life. From the tiniest arch of grass and twig, the shrew mouse will peep. Above the shallowest rain pool, the dragonfly will hang in miraculous suspense, like one of the fairy javelins of midair, which in a moment could be withheld in mid-flight. The squirrel swings from branch to branch. The leveret shakes the dew from the shadowed grass. The rabbits flitter to and fro like brown beams of life. The robin, the chaffinch, the ouzel call through the warm green glooms. On the bramble spray and from the fern garth, the yellowhammer reiterates his gladsome single song. In the cloudless blue fields of the sky, the swifts weave a maze of shadow. The rooks rise and fall in giddy ascents and descents, like black galleys surmounting measureless waves and sinking into incalculable gulfs. Then the forest wearies of this interminable exuberance, this daily and nightly charm of exultant life. It desires another spell, the enchantment of silence, of dreams. One day the songs cease, the nests are cold. In the lush meadows the hare sleeps, the corncrake calls. By the brook the cattle stand motionless, or with long tails rhythmically a-swing, and ears a twitch above the moist amber-violet, dreamless eyes. The columnar trees are like phantom smoke of secret invisible fires. In the green glooms of the forest a sigh is heard. A troubled and furtive moan is audible in waste, indiscoverable places. The thunder time is come. Now in the woods may be seen and heard and felt that secret presence which in the spring months hid behind songs and blossom, and later clothed itself in dense veils of green and all the magic of June. Something is now evident that was not evident. Somewhat is entered into the forest. The leaves know it. The bracken knows it. The secret is in every copse, in every thicket, is palpable in every glade, is abroad in every shadow-thridden avenue, is common to the spreading bough and the leaning branch. It is not a rumor, for that might be the wind stealthily lifting his long wings from glade to glade. It is not a whisper, for that might be the secret passage of unquiet airs, furtive heralds of the unloosening thunder. It is not a sigh, for that might be the breath of branch and bough, of fern frond and grass, obvious in the great suspense. It is an ineffable communication. It comes along the ways of silence, along the ways of sound. Its light feet are on sun rays and on shadows. Like dew, one knows not whether it is mysteriously gathered from below or secretly come from on high. Simply, it is there, above, around, beneath, but the hush is dispelled at last. The long lances of the rain come slanting through the branches. They break as against invisible barriers and fall in a myriad pattering rush. The hoarse mutterings and sudden crashing roar of the thunder possess the whole forest. There are no more privacies. The secrecies are violated. From that moment the woods are renewed, and with the renewal the secret spirit that dwells within them withdraws, is not to be surprised, is inaudible, indefinitely recedes, is become remote, obscure, ineffable, incommunicable. And so through veils of silence, and hot noons and hushed warm midnights, the long weeks of July and August go by. In the woods of September, surely the forest soul may be surprised, will be the thought of many. In that month the sweet incessant business of bird and beast lessens or is at an end. The woodpecker may still tap at the boles of gnarled oaks and chestnuts. The squirrel is more than ever mischievously gay. On frosty mornings when the gossamer webs are woven across every bramble, and from frond to frond of the bronze-stained bracken, the redbreast tries and retries the poignant new song he has somehow learned since first he flaunted his bright canticles of March and April from the meadow hedge or the sunned greenness of the beech covert. But there is a general silence, a present suspense, while the lime yellows and the birch takes on her pale gold, and oak and sycamore and ash slowly transmute their green multitudes into a new throng, clad in russet or dull red or sunset orange. The forest is full of loveliness. In her dusky ways faint azure mists gather. When the fawn leaps through the fern, it is no longer soundlessly. There is a thin, dry rustle, as of a dove brushing swiftly from its fastness in an ancient yew. One may pass from covert to covert, from glade to glade, and find the secret just about to be revealed, somewhere beyond the group of birches, beside that oak it may be, just behind that isolated thorn. But it is never quite overtaken. It is as evasive as moonlight in the hollows of waves. When present, it is already gone. When approached, it has the unhasting but irretrievable withdrawal of the shadow. In October, this bewildering evasion is still more obvious, because the continual disclosure is more near and intimate. When, after autumns of rain and wind, or the sudden stealthy advent of nocturnal frosts, a multitude of leaves become sere and wan, and then the leaves strew every billow of wind like clots of driven foam, or fall in still wavering flight like flakes of windless snow, then it is surely then that the great surprise is imminent, that the secret and furtive whisper will become a voice. And yet there is something withheld. In November itself, there are days, weeks even, when a rich autumn survives. The oaks and ashes will often keep their red and orange till after St. Luke's peace. In sheltered parts of the forest, even the plane, the sycamore, and the chestnut will flaunt their thin, leopard-spotted yellow bannerets. I remember coming upon a Spanish chestnut in the center of a group of all but leafless hornbeams. There seemed to be not a leaf missing from that splendid congregation of scarlet and amber and luminous saffron. A few yards on, and even the hardy beeches and oaks were denuded of all but a scattered and defeated company of brown or withered stragglers. Why should that single tree have kept its early October loveliness unchanged through those weeks of rain and wind and frosts of midnight and dawn? There was not one of its immediate company but was in desolate ruin, showing the bare nests high among the stark boughs. Through the whole forest the great unloosening had gone. Even the oaks in hollow places, which had kept greenness like a continual wave, suspended among dull masses of seaweed, had begun to yield to the vanishing call of the last voices of summer. Day by day their scattered tribes, then whole clans, broke up the tents of home and departed on the long mysterious exile. Yet this sentinel at the gate of the north stood undaunted, splendid in warrior array. The same instinct that impels the soul from its outward home into the incalculable void moves the leaf with the imperious desire of the gray wind. But as in human life, there are some who retain a splendid youth far into the failing regions of gray hair and broken years, so in the forest life there are trees which seem able to defy wind and rain and the consuming feet of frost. The most subtle charm of the woods in November is in those blue spaces which lie at so brief a distance in every avenue of meeting boughs, under every enclosing branch. This azure mist which gathers like still, faint smoke has the spell of silent waters, of moonlight, of the pale rose of serene dawns. It has a light that is its own, as unique as that unnameable flame which burns in the core of the rainbow. The earth breathes it. It is the breath of the fallen leaves, the moss, the tangled fern, the undergrowth, the trees. It is the breath also of the windless gray-blue sky that leans so low. Surely also it is the breath of that other world of which our songs and legends are so full. It has that mysteriousness, that spell, with which in imagination we endow the noon silences, the eves and dawns of fairy twilights. Still, the silence and the witchery of the forest solitudes in November are of the spell of autumn. The last enchantment of midwinter is not yet come. It is in the dead months that the forest permits the last disguises to fall away. The forest soul is no longer an incommunicable mystery. It is abroad. It is a communicable dream. In that magnificent nakedness it knows its safety. For the first time, it stands like a soul that has mastered all material things and is fearless in face of the immaterial things, which are the only life of the spirit. In these dead months of December and January, the forest lives its own life. It is not asleep as the poets feign. Sleep has entered into the forest, has made the deep silence its habitation, but the forest itself is awake, mysterious, omnipresent, a creature seen at last in its naked majesty. One says lightly, there is no green thing left. That, of course, is a mere phrase of relativity. There is always green fern somewhere, even in the gorse of tangled yellow-brown bracken. There is always moss somewhere, hidden among the great serpentine roots of the beeches. The ilex will keep its dusty green through the harvest winter. The yew, the cypress, the holly have no need of the continual invasion of the winds and rains and snows. On the ash and elm, the wood ivy will hang her spiked leaves. On many of the oaks, the lovely dull green of the mistletoe will droop in graceful clusters, the cream-white berries glistening like innumerable Pleiades of pearls. But these are lost in the immense uniformity of desolation. They are accidents, interludes. The wilderness knows them, as the gray wastes of tempestuous seas know a wave here and there that lifts a huge rampart of jade crowned with snow, or the long resiliency of gigantic billows which reveal smooth falling precipices of azure. The waste itself is one vast desolation, the more gray and terrible because in the mass invariable. To go through those winter aisles of the forest is to know an elation foreign to the melancholy of November or to the first fall of the leaf. It is not the elation of certain days in February when the storm-cock tosses his song among the wild reefs of naked bough and branch. It is not the elation of March when a blueness haunts the myriad unburst buds and the throstle builds her nest and calls to the south. It is not the elation of April when the virginal green is like exquisite music of life in miraculous suspense, nor the elation of May, when the wild rose moves in soft flame upon the thickets, and the returned magic of the cuckoo is an intoxication, nor the elation of June, when the merle above the honeysuckle and the cushat in the green glooms fill the hot noons with joy, and when the long fragrant twilights are thrilled with the passion of the night-jar. It is not this rapture nor that delight, but its elation is an ecstasy that is its own. It is then that one understands as one has never understood. It is then that one loves the mystery one has but fugitively divined. Where the forest murmurs, there is music, ancient, everlasting. Go to the winter woods, listen there, look, watch, and the dead months will give you a subtler secret than any you have yet found in the forest. Then there is always one possible superb fortune. You may see the woods in snow. There is nothing in the world more beautiful than the forest clothed to its very hollows in snow. That is a loveliness to which surely none can be insensitive. It is the still ecstasy of nature, wherein every spray, every blade of grass, every spire of reed, every intricacy of twig, is clad with radiance, and myriad form is renewed in continual change, as though in the passionate delight of the white artificer. It is beauty so great and complex that the imagination is stilled into an aching hush. There is the same trouble in the soul as before the starry hosts of a winter night. At the turn of the year, when one hears of the dead months, of dead December and bleak January, the best corrective is to be found in the coppice or by the stream side, by the field thicket, in the glens, and even on the wide moors if the snow is not everywhere fallen, a coverlet so dense and wide that even the juniper has not a green spike to show, or the dauntless bunting a clean wind branch to call from the brumino. Even the common sayings reveal a knowledge hidden from those to whom winter is a dead season, and it is a continual surprise to find how many people believe that from the fall of the leaf or the first sleet and snow till the thrush doubles and trebles his note in the February wet shine, that bird and insect and all green life have gone, that all nature is dead or asleep. Thus, for example, as keen in the hearing as a winter plover must have been uttered when first said by a watcher of the multiform bird life of our winter fields and fallow lands, one who knew that the same drama of life and death is enacted in midwinter as in mid-spring or midsummer, a drama only less crowded, less complex and less obvious, but not less continual, not less vital for the actors. Who that has watched the peewits seeking worms on ploughed lands at midwinter, and seen them poise their delicate heads and listen for the phantom rustle of a worm in this clod or under yonder fallow, while the greedy but incapable sea mews inland come from frost-bound coasts or on the front of prolonged gales, hear nothing of the red people, and trust only to bulk and fierce beak to snatch the prey from hungry plover bills. Who that has seen this can fail to recognize the aptness of the saying, as keen in the hearing as a winter plover? Who that has watched the ebb and flow of lark life, resident and immigrant, the troubled winter days of the field travelers, as the familiar word field fare means, and the wandering thrushes, the vagrant rooks, the barn-hunting hooty, the yellowhammer flocks and the tribes of the finch, the ample riverside life where heron and snipe, mallard and moorhen, wren and kingfisher, and even plover and the everywhere adaptable starling are to be found with ease by quick eyes and careful ears. Who that has seen the sudden apparition of the bat, or the columnar dance of the ephemeridae, or the flight of the winter moth along the dishevelled hedgerows? Or who that, besides the mistletoe and the ivy, the holly and the fir, the box and the late flowering clematis, and many other of the green and flowering clans of the forest and the garden, has noted the midwinter blooming shepherd's purse, healing groundsel, bright chickweed, and red dead nettle, can think of nature as lifeless at this season, when amid the rains and storms of December, an old gardener, instead of saying that spring was on the move, remarked to me that 'twill be starling days soon. He gave voice to a truth of observation as impressive as it is beautiful. For often December has not lapsed before the mysterious breeding change of the vita nuova, the new life that spreads like a flowing wave so early in the coming year, will begin to be obvious on the dun-hued lapwing, on the inland wandering gull, and even on one or other of the small clan of the bushes more dear and familiar to us. On none, however, is the change so marked as on the blithe starling, surely the bird of cheerfulness, for he will sing. Does he ever cease that ever-varying call or flute or whistle of his? When the lark cannot rise in the polar air, when the missel thrush will not throw a challenge on the wet wind, and long before the most jubilant great tit in the forest will ring his early tinkling bell under leafless boughs. For even at Christmas-tide, though rarely perhaps quite so early, the dark bill will suddenly yellow, and a green and purple sheen will come over the russet plumage. Already nature has looked northward again, and when she looks, there is at once a first movement of the infinite sweet trouble of the new life once more. The creative spirit is come again from the sunways of the south. 'Twill be starling days soon. What is that but a homely way of saying that the old year has not lapsed before the new year has already stirred with the divine throes of rebirth? The king is dead. Long live the king is the human analogue. There is no interregnum. The cuckoo may have fled before the swallow, the landrail before the wild swan, but during the gray ebb of autumn, 10,000 wings have rustled in the dawn as the migrants from oversea descend at last on our English and Scottish shores. A myriad host may have fled at the equinox, or lingered till the wet winds of the west and the freezing blasts of the north swept them from November. But on those east winds from Norway and the Baltic, from Jutland and Friesland, on those south winds leaping upward from the marshes of Picardy and the Breton heathlands, and from all of the swarm delivering south behind, on those southwest gales, warm with the soft air of the isles of the west, and wet with the foam over lost Ys and sunken Lyonnesse. What an incalculable host has come hitherward. Like great fans, the invisible pinions of the bird god, that winged spirit whom a Finnish legend imagines in continual suspense at the crossways of the four winds, beat this way and that, so that when already the lament of the wild geese in storm-baffled flight from the south ulules in our Norland dawns, clouds of larks are gathered like dust from the North Sea lands and are blown upon our shores. A multitude of thrush turn westward. The rook and the hoodie rise on the Danish wind, and yonder shadow drifting over the woods of Norway is none other than 10,000 fieldfares, whose congregation will soon be spilt like rain upon our fields and pastures. When is the turn of the year? We have certainly not to wait till the missel thrush calls down the wind on the moist sou'wester that comes in February. The changing seasons are indifferent to our calendars. Autumn may burn the lime and chestnut, while summer is still in her glory. Summer may steal back upon us through the September haze, or even after we have heard the dry rustle in the woods of October. We are familiar with the return of halcyon days, when St. Luke's peace follows the wind Euroclydon, or when St. Martin's summer gleams like a quiet sunset on the stormy brows of winter. In mid-December, the gnat may still be seen spinning her dance by the hedgerow. The warmth-loving bat may still wheel through silent afternoon dusks. The robin will pitch his blithe song from holly to holly. The hedge sparrow will chase the winter moth. The chaffinch will challenge the marauding tit. In January, when the snow lids open and the blue is seen, a lark will spray his sudden music from far up in the pale azure, and as the long notes tinkle and the interwoven song falls down the blue invisible ways, we almost imagine that sky glimpse to be the very face of spring. Thus we have to wait for no day on which to note from the calendar that the new year is come, or on which to exclaim that winter is gone and spring has arrived. A day may come, in February perhaps, when suddenly one will realize, as after sleep one realizes one is awake, that the hands of the South are in the woods, that the eyes of the South are looking into the white sleep of blossom and flower, that the breath of the South has awakened love, has stirred music in the hearts of all the clans of song. But if we had not ourselves been asleep, we should not have waited thus long for the exquisite surprise. We should have known the divine conspiracy by which the North and South are lovers, and the West comrade to the East. The conspiracy of the eternal passion by which power desires power, and dominion lusteth after dominion, so that all the effort of the North is to touch the lips of the South, all the dream of the East is to reach the sunset gardens of the West. We should have known, when out of December frost or January snow, the redbreast thrilled a canticle of joy, or the russet moth sought his wingless love in windless flame-set twilights, that the gray lover already felt the breath from those ardent lips. We should have realized that when across the snow silence the fieldfares no longer edged southward, that when on the upland pasture the lapwing began his bridal change, and in the bare orchard the starling began to glisten as though he had bathed at the edge of the rainbow, or to wonder in some ice-set mirror at his dun beak now grown yellow as the sheltered crocus he knows of under the garden yew. We should have realized that while this dark-browed barbarian from the north slept, the fair woman of the south had passed smiling by, and kissed him as she passed. The breeding change that may be seen even before Christmas, the January stir that becomes so obvious a week or so, or any day after the new year is come. Here and now we are at the turn of the year. By mid-January even, here and there, the song thrush and the missel may have begun to build, and even the great tit's bell may tinkle in the coppice or wind-spared russet oak glade. Already the snowdrop and the Christmas rose, the green-white aconite and the pale winter iris are become old acquaintances. Many a primrose may have adventured in shy retreats. Any day a wandering minstrel will spill a tinkle of music from among the first yellow spray of hazel catkins. The hedge sparrow may unloose in song under the early opening woodbine buds. The corn bunting may crack his fairy hammer, or the wren try his New Year flute among the yellowing gorse. Any day, at the sight of the first nomad daisies, or the first gay vagrant dandelion, the yellowhammer may become a lover and a poet. It is this unchanging, any-day element that redeems even the longest and dreariest midwinter. The sense of the ever-moving ichor in the eternal veins, the inward exultation at the ever-quickening and ever-slowing, but never-ceasing fans of life and death. Yesterday, rain fog. Today, frost mist. But how fascinating each, how vast and menacing the familiar oaks looked, leaning gigantic over dim lapsing hedgerows. How phantom-like and processional, the elms stealing into view, one after the other, the birches disclosing tresses wet with dews from the secret woods they are gliding from, to regain the secret lands beyond the misty river, where I can hear the mallard call like a sudden tocsin among the falling towers and silent avalanches of cloudland. It is desolate here where I stand. Nettles grow in the garden while the roses decay. A long way off yet, till the wood thrush rings his falling chime from the April tree or French broom, as the laburnum is called in some parts of the Highlands. Already I have today cut a slip from a garden laburnum for a friend who wants a flute of the April tree, for there is no timber better for the whistlewood of the bagpipe than this, and what more fit for the strayed Pan, if perchance he follow the phantom call in the hills of the north. But see, the mist has gone like a haze from blue water. I hear starling music over yonder, in the Talav Narav, as ocean calls the country of the woods. The flute of the April tree, and snow at my feet. The flute of the April tree. It has the yellow and white magic of spring in it. And with that conclusion to a magical chapter, I think we'll end this evening's reading from Where the Forest Murmurs by Fiona Macleod I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like to enjoy the other essays in this book, as always, you'll find a link to a free ebook from Project Gutenberg in the show description. If you'd like to connect, suggest a boring book you'd like to hear read, or request more from one we've already started, you can drop me an email via our website, www.boringbookspod.com. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining me for this evening's reading. Until our next boring book, good night.